All right, good morning. Welcome. It's Monday, July 29th. We're just about running out of July. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow on a very humid morning here on Lake Wissota. Nice to have you along. Here's what's coming up. When our show gets started at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network, we're going to be talking to Dr. Kristin Lyerly, as we often do on Mondays. Another OBGYN colleague, Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer, will join us in our second hour to talk about the elephant in the womb, and that would be Republican efforts to take away more of women's health care rights. And Dr. Cox-Bauer is taking part in a national bus tour called Ride to Decide. And so we will be talking to her about that coming up this morning. We'll talk about history being made at the state capitol with a statue dedicated to Vel Phillips, probably the first statue honoring a black woman outside any state capitol in the U.S. We'll talk about the milestones in her life of service to the state of Wisconsin. And Donald Trump I'm glad we've come up with the right word, weird. Trump just being weird again. So we've got that to talk about, maybe a little bit of Olympics, some weekend plans. All been good, so we will have that all going. And oh, you know what? I didn't put my big time clock up here. I usually keep a great big clock in front of me so that I hit all these things just right. And now, there it is. I can now tell you that in 4 minutes and 10 seconds, we'll get this show going across the Civic Media Radio Network. See you soon.
Wisconsin from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wasota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Monday morning. It's July 29th, 2024. It's another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wasota, from wherever you're listening, across the Civic Media Radio Network or through the Civic Media app, watching us on social media or listening on demand by podcast. Thank you for taking us along to get your week started. I got a question for you. What do you know about Vel Phillips? I'll bet the answer is not a lot. I certainly was in that camp until about a dozen years ago, and plenty of other people were in that camp until this past Friday when a statue of her was unveiled in front of the state capitol. It appears to be America's first statue outside of a state capitol honoring a black woman, and we're going to take a few minutes to review the milestones of her life and why this is such a deserving honor coming up this morning. Also coming up, it's Monday. As normal, we will talk to our friend, Dr. Kristin Lyerly. She's an OBGYN. She's also a candidate for Congress. She's also into the live music scene, and we'll find out what concert she went to last night. Big one at a big venue, and what she thought about that. One of her OBGYN colleagues, Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer, is active in promoting the restoration of women's health care rights, and we're going to talk to her in the second hour about her participation in a national bus tour called Ride to Decide. We'll talk about the momentum building for unseating elected officials who keep wanting politicians to interfere with doctors and their patients and women's health care rights overall. I like the line that I saw somewhere on social media over the weekend saying it's past time that we talk about the elephant in the womb. And so we will get into that. You can add your comments throughout the course of the day by calling or texting us 855-75-CIVIC. That's 855-752-4842. You can also use the Civic Media app, or if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you can post a question or a comment in the comment section, and we'll see it, and maybe we'll put it up on screen as well. You can also follow what happens at Up North News, which is a separate entity from Civic Media, over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there. After all these years of saying click newsletter in the top banner, that's no longer true. They just changed it to subscribe. So go to our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com, click subscribe up in the top banner, and you'll be part of the newsletter experience. Let's see. This morning, Christina Lori's put in there the story behind all those kids and bikes and training camp at Lambeau Field and how that whole tradition of Packer players riding kids' bikes got started. So a little bit more about the training camp for the Packers. Other can't miss events in August around Green Bay. And then there's a link to our recent article with Angela Lang from Block about the excitement of passing the torch to a new generation. And of course, in that, we're referencing Kamala Harris as the new presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. A lot of excitement there, and the freak out continues on the Republican side of things. We'll talk about frankly, the word fits, so we're going to keep using it, the weird stuff that Republicans have been saying ever since Kamala Harris went to the top of the ticket. So a lot to cover, but before we do that, as Alicia points out here on a Facebook comment, we all want to know how Yacht Rock Friday went at the Brewers game. I can help you with that, Alicia, but first, let me tell you that we've got 6 a.m. temperatures around the state here, 70 here in Lake Wasota, 61 in Hayward, and everybody has humidity in the 90s to 100% humidity. It is humid out there. Park Falls is at 68, Wausau 66, Green Bay 72, La Crosse 73, Wisconsin Rapids 68, Oshkosh 70, Madison 73, Waukesha 68, where Greg Bach is standing by at the studios of WAUK The Shaw. Mr. Bach, who I saw at the Yacht Rock night at the Brewers game. How are you? How was the rest of your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was fairly laid back. Yeah, we went to Yacht Rock Friday at the Brewers Park baseball place. And then Saturday did not a whole lot. And then Sunday I went to the museum with my niece and my nephew. And that was it. No club this weekend. We were closed because there was so much going on in Milwaukee this past weekend.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It was like Harley Fest, River West 24, German Fest. They had their own air show during EAA up north. Like, it's just, there was so much happening. We're like, let's just not try to compete.
Yeah, we saw a couple of Blue Angels fly over American Family Field as we were heading into the stadium early on. It got really loud all of a sudden. We look up and it's like, what are those? I don't know my planes. I don't know if they're F-35s or what they are, but they were big and loud and very, very fast. And I looked at my friend Kevin. I'm like, are we at war? I'm like, oh, wait, there's EAA and there's other things going on here. It was a great time. It was great to see you and Luke Mathers. Chad Holmes came all the way down from Wausau and then drove all the way back. Yeah.
Holy crime in Italy.
Well, that's how fun we are. You know, when you get a chance to go to a Brewers game with your colleagues, you know,
we
make the
Jay
drive.
Matt there. And Johnny Watermullen from WAUK as well.
Yep.
It was a good time.
Aaron was there. Yeah.
Aaron Carreno was there with some friends as well. And it was a nice, breezy, cool night, which was very, very nice. And it was a wonderful, comfortable atmosphere with great work friends to watch the Brewers get spanked from almost the beginning of the game.
Oh, Freddie Peralta got rocked early. It was ugly. They lost ugly again on Saturday. Thankfully, they rescued one game from the series yesterday with Devin Williams finally being back from injuries. And it was definitely a good time. But Alicia, to your question about Yacht Rock Night, they played Yacht Rock tunes.
Yeah.
But for some reason, again, nobody's going to feel pity for us. We had seats on the club level, and the club level is very nice. You know, the padded seats and some extra food options. It's wonderful. But apparently, for some reason or another, because you're like a season ticket holder on that you don't get the hats. We didn't get the Yacht Rock hats.
No, it's a separate theme night.
We were a little unhappy about that, but we'll live. And then we spent the rest of the game like noticing if any Yacht Rock artists were missing. Like, wait, we haven't heard Steely Dan yet, and then there's a little bit of Steely Dan, and it was like, wait, we haven't heard Christopher Cross yet. So,
well, yeah, I was going to ask about that because we left at like the top of the 8th, and did they end up playing Sailing?
They did not that I heard. No, nope.
What?
Alicia fixes the record here. The Blue Angels are FA-18 Super Hornets, so not F-35s. So thank you, Alicia.
Thank you very much, Alicia.
Correcting the record.
I thought it was going to be a wash with Yacht Rock.
Same here.
Going to be, and like there might be even a band playing like "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and
in a Yacht Rock style. They could have done a lot with it. Maybe they should have let an oldster, help plan this thing. Somebody who actually lived through the Yacht Rock years.
Yeah, it was fun. It was
do it. Yeah, they should do it next year. Let's just take the game up next year. Let's just step it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had a great time. So get this, because everybody knows I have to get up. We have to get up super early to do the shift here. And on the weekends, for me, sleeping in means like 5:30, at the latest 6:30. We got home. There was construction, so we got back to my friend Kevin's place in Madison and got to bed about 12:15 or so.
Oof.
I slept. I'm not even kidding. I was by myself in their guest room. I slept until 9:05. 9:05. I haven't done that since I was a teenager. I look at my phone. I'm like, am I in a hospital? Was I in a coma? Now, Grant, look, that's still 9 hours, which, if you're lucky on a weekend, I can get that. But usually, 9 hours there is like, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. But to go till 9 a.m., I was floored. I'm like, okay, apparently I am still capable of doing that. I needed that, but we all know what a week it was last week. Remember Thursday we were all kind of grouchy, and by Friday we were just punch drunk.
Yeah, we're like, when is this all going to be done?
Yes. So I definitely got to do that. Got to spend yesterday just on the pontoon throughout the day, and that was great. And then last night watched a little bit of Olympics. So I'm now an expert in many sports.
Nice.
Greg, I know you said you weren't going to watch any of the Olympics. So I guess I won't ask you about that, right?
Oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. Darn it. There it is. John Williams wrote this, by the way. I did not know.
Of course he did. John Williams wrote everything. John Williams wrote all of Yacht Rock. We just haven't given him credit yet. John Williams is everywhere. So yeah, watched the Olympics. What about you?
So I told you and I told Jane, I'm like, I'm probably not going to watch. I'm not a big Olympics fan because I don't usually watch. And then I went to my mom's house on Friday afterwards before the game after work, and I watched the entire opening ceremonies.
Oh,
and then
okay.
I watched beach volleyball this weekend. I watched skateboarding. I watched some archery.
I'm not watching any of this.
I think because it's all in one place now, and this weekend was so kind of like, laid back. Like, instead of trying to pick a TV show or a movie, or especially watching a TV show I've watched 1,000 times before, like, you know what? Let's just throw the Olympics on and just see what. And Bridget and I were both like, yeah, let's do it. So we just sat there and watched, and I love watching beach volleyball, and archery is just amazing to me. Yes. So yeah, whatever was on, basically, we would just kind of. Well, we did come to the conclusion, water polo is boring.
Oh, okay.
So boring.
And again, it's not like they're standing up in the pool. They have to keep themselves up all that time, which is crazy. When the clip came up from badminton last night, I was getting set to mock it, but then I'm watching the clip, and there is nothing to mock there. There was this very long volley where the thingy that they're hitting, the little birdie, is moving like at 200 miles an hour. And you've seen this with ping pong. You've seen those wild back and forths. They're doing this with badminton. I'm like, this is crazy. I saw, mountain biking. Interesting development where in gymnastics, they put a heart rate monitor on one of the parents, not the athlete, the parents. So you're watching the heart rate go up. I'm like, I think that's kind of cruel. We're just showing off health information now about the parents. So I think we'll have a lot to talk about there as we go through the coming couple of weeks here. Some highlights, and I'm sure some lowlights as well. But again, it's just nice to have something different for the summer. It was a good summer weekend, and now we've got some summer Olympics and maybe things to take a break from the news now and then. But we will unpack some of the news. Coming up right after this, talking about some weird comments from Trump and the Vel Phillips statue being unveiled on Up North News Radio on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Appearing with Jack tonight are Betty Davis, Giselle McKenzie, and Jonathan Winters. And now, here's Jack.
Instead of the usual bumper music, here's a little This Day in History. On this day in 1957, The Tonight Show starring Jack Paar premiered on NBC, and you heard some of the intro there from one of his shows. He had that from 1957 to 1962 when he passed the reins to Johnny Carson. So that was on this day. Hey, the August 13th primary is right around the corner, so be sure that you have a plan to vote. If you want to learn more about what's on your ballot and where to vote in the August 13th primary, especially on those two big constitutional amendments, go to myvote.wi.gov to learn more about that, myvote.wi.gov. I mentioned that Devin Williams is back after he was out with a stress fracture in his back for the first 4 months of the season. He pitched a scoreless inning in the Brewers' 6-2 victory over Miami. Jake Bauers hit a home run and a triple. Let's see, even without Williams, Milwaukee had done okay with their bullpen. It was ranked third in the majors in terms of ERA. And, of course, your first place Milwaukee Brewers continue to lead the National League Central Division, avoiding the 3-game sweep by the Marlins, who, by the way, second worst record in the NL. That's what made Friday and Saturday's losses so frustrating. But it avoided the sweep. So far, the Brewers have only been swept once all season, and that was at Philadelphia June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So now Atlanta comes to town for 3 games, starting tonight. Colin Ray on the mound for the Brewers. 7:10 the first pitch, 6:35 would be the pregame. All right, I wanted to talk just for a bit about a new statue being unveiled in honor of Vel Phillips. And again, I would say that if I hadn't run for Congress in 2012, maybe I still would not have heard of Vel Phillips. But I got to have a phone call with her, and I was so taken by the phone call. And she passed away not too long after that. And I thought, this is somebody who is really not nearly enough is said about her. And I'm so thankful now that there is this statue to her on the grounds of the Wisconsin State Capitol. In 1951, she became the first African-American woman to graduate from the UW-Madison Law School. In 1956, she was the first woman and the first black on the Milwaukee Common Council. During her time on the council, based on a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel story here, she fought for an open housing ordinance to ban discrimination in rental and home sales, only to see it voted down year after year after year. The measure finally passed in 1986. Phillips became the first black woman to become a judge in Wisconsin. She became the first black woman elected statewide when she was voted in as Wisconsin's Secretary of State, where she continued her record for civil rights and women's equality. And when running for Congress in 2012, I mean, you have to make a million phone calls, most of them for money, but some of them just to talk to, VIPs, other leaders in the party, so that people get to know you and maybe talk about you. And I really did not know anything of her record. And as I'm talking to her, and she could not have been more gracious, she could not have been sweeter in encouraging me, but then telling me a bit more about her life. And I feel very fortunate that I at least got to have that one conversation with her. And so this is an honor that is so overdue and so worthy. And so I hope that, next time folks are at the state capitol, they take a chance to go see her statue. There's several statues there around the capitol. And this one, as noted by Governor Evers in the unveiling on Friday, said it will serve as a powerful lesson for those who visit the Capitol, especially for young children. He says now they're going to know that representation matters. This sculpture is going to make a difference in kids' lives. So again, congratulations and good work to everybody who helped make that happen. Over the weekend, I have to say the possible vice presidential contenders, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, they were on fire this weekend with their comments. I mean, these guys have all been around for a while, but there is some kind of new energy across the party and across the ticket. And it is definitely shaking up people, starting at the very top on the Republican side with people like Donald Trump, who had the had the strategic quirk of deciding to come to Minnesota the other day, a state that he has lost resoundingly. He's behind the polls in double digits. And yet in Minnesota, again, continuing this talk about, lying about elections and threatening to cheat again, here's what he had to say about what would happen in Minnesota this November.
If they don't cheat, we win this state easily, okay? They cheat. They have no shame. They cheat. Do you understand that, you crooked people? They're the most crooked. They cheat. They cheated in the last election, and they're going to cheat in this election, but we're going to get them. They used COVID to cheat. And this time they'll try and find something, but we think we have them blocked. They have no shame whatsoever.
Or hear me out, or you lost. You lost. A Republican hasn't won in Minnesota since 1972, I think. Nixon McGovern. This is a guy who then went a step further in talking to a different group over the weekend, a Christian group, and saying to them something that has been debated ever since. Like, is he promising to be an authoritarian, or is he saying things will be so wonderful you'll never have to vote again after this year? I see why a lot of people think it might have been the first example. Give a listen to what he had to say to this group.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out.
Did he just say, I'm not Christian? I can never make out sometimes what he says there, whether he's, I don't know. I would not want to be the guy doing closed captioning for him. Let's put it that way.
Just big shrug emoji. Like, I don't know what he said.
No. Did he just say I'm not Christian? I don't know. But yeah. People say, well, what does he mean? Like you'll never have to vote again. Look, we all saw January 6th. We just heard what he said about, basically threatening to cheat or cause unrest in Minnesota if he doesn't win. So if a guy tells you he says to a Christian group, it's all going to be fixed, you should be a little concerned, just a little bit.
And the guy you say who comes down from heaven above God's hand, and he's like, I'm not Christian. Okay. All right. I guess.
Yeah. Right. But look, that's only one example of, some kind of crazy right-wing outrage. I mean, the other was about the opening ceremonies, where, again, from Speaker Mike Johnson on down, you had all this faux outrage about, the mockery of the Last Supper. No, it was not the Last Supper that they were depicting in there. And, the headless horse person, was it or the horse on the Seine, was that a sign of the, apocalypse? Like, no, it's a different story. We're going to get more into that a little bit later on this morning as well. Dr. Kristin Lyerly is going to join us in just a bit. The Midwest Farm Report, too. This is Up North News Radio.
Appearing with Jack tonight are Betty Davis, Giselle McKenzie.
Secret Show viewers, please welcome Dr. Kristin Lyerly from an undisclosed location in the beautiful Twin Cities, I'm guessing.
Downtown Minneapolis, baby.
There you go. All right. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Good deal. We got a couple of Tim Walz clips we're going to play too. So we'll get that going in 15 seconds.
A couple?
Feeling very
Only have one.
Minneapolis.
A couple Trump clips. Sorry.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And we know too well what that's about. Still we made it through. Only God knows how. Must have had a little help. Must have been a while.
Martina McBride is 58 years old today, one of the queens of early 90s country music. And that's one of my favorite tunes there. Wild Angels. Kristin Lyerly joins us now from an undisclosed location somewhere in downtown Minneapolis, where she was taking part as a spectator in some big music festival from some band I've barely heard of, but apparently everybody goes to it. And, well, where the heck were you, Kristin? Good morning.
You've barely heard of the Foo Fighters? Have you been living under a rock, Pat?
Oh, I thought it was Fish.
No.
Oh, that would have been awesome too.
No, it was the Foo Fighters. And listen to this. L7 opened for them, and Chrissy Hind and the Pretenders were the second act.
What? Chrissy Hind?
She was fantastic.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we rocked out until about 1 a.m. We're kind of tired this morning, but I'm here with you.
Yes, you are. Wow.
Oh, man. This is
So Foo Fighters, that's Dave Grohl, right?
It sure is.
Oh,
Okay.
Don't ask like you do. That's different.
No, seriously. I get Foo Fighters and Goo Goo Dolls mixed up. I get my foos and my goos. I get mixed up occasionally. So that's the thing. And this was at Target Field or Target Center?
This was at Target Field.
Okay.
And there was another little kind of special home cooking thing because we all miss Taylor Hawkins, the drummer who passed away recently, who was just brilliant and so fun to watch. But Josh Freese is the drummer for them now. And his dad is Stan Freese, who is probably the most famous tuba player and also a University of Minnesota alum. So like there's all of this like, and he grew up in Edina. And so there was like this special home cooking kind of feel about it.
Okay. Famous tuba player. Okay. Well,
It's a thing. Have you heard of Tuba Christmas?
no.
I've heard of Tuba
toothpaste,
Christmas.
that's it.
Tuba Christmas is where all the tuba players come together and they play Christmas songs, and it's like just tubas.
All right. Well, that's fun.
It is fun.
So you're over there in Minnesota, and now as you've been working over there and getting a little more involved in certain activities, I believe you've met Governor Tim Walz once or twice.
Yes. In fact, Governor Walz invited me when he signed a shield law that protected patients and providers when they came to Minnesota for healthcare. So he invited me to come to the signing and I got to speak, and we've met quite a few times. He is a good human being and a really, really strong public servant.
You know how when they say about an overnight sensation, they use that phrase. And usually they use it with like a musician, like, oh, he or she or that band is an overnight sensation, meaning they did not see all the years that went into this. Now, I've known about Tim Walz for a long time because he was, for 10 years, he was a congressman from southern Minnesota. Southern Minnesota, that is a hugely Republican district. And yet he won 5 elections there as a Democrat because he's just what everybody's seeing now. There's nothing fake about him. He's got military background, if I'm not mistaken. He's been a teacher. He just speaks in plain English and has no problem saying what he believes in, even when like national reporters are now saying, might you be too liberal? Is that the clip, Greg, that you've got there? I wanted to play at least one clip from Governor Walz.
Oh, I have the one where he's referring to the GOP as a certain.
Oh yes, and then he's the one that used the word now that's become like the latest buzzword because again it's so plain English. Play Tim Walz. Let's see what he's got to say.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take books
They're just
away.
weird.
They want to be in your exam room. That's what it comes down to. And don't, get sugarcoating this. These are weird ideas. Listen to them speak. Listen how they talk about things. Listen to how your previous guests were right. Like you said, they've told them that they shouldn't talk about race. They can't help it. It is built into their DNA because there is no plan. There's no healthcare plan. There's no healthcare plan. There's nothing to do on this. They want to take away our alliances and leave Russia to do whatever they want. Look, they are bad on foreign policy. They are bad on the environment. They certainly have no healthcare plan. And they keep talking about the middle class that, as I said, a robber baron real estate guy and a venture capitalist trying to tell us they understand who we are. They don't know who we are.
Yeah, and then over the weekend, Jake Tapper's like, are you too progressive? And he's like, why? Because I want to feed kids lunches, because of his school lunch stance. He does not shy away from any of this. And Kristin, you've been familiar with the governor for a while.
Yeah, you're right. He embraces all of it. And, just remember, like from a women's health perspective, after the Dobbs decision, every single state got a little bit worse. Minnesota got better. And a lot of it was because of Tim Walz and what he was able to do with the trifecta over here, Republican House, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and his leadership. They were able to spend their budget surplus to help families, to help children, to ensure that kids got lunch at school. The work that he's done has been absolutely brilliant.
And going back prior to that, I mean, since the Great Recession of 2009, Minnesota and Wisconsin prior to that had basically, similar economies. And then once Minnesota voters embraced Democrats for governor and legislature, and here in Wisconsin, people elected Scott Walker and a Republican legislature, the economies went in two entirely different directions. And it's only been under, Governor Evers' stewardship that the Wisconsin economy has finally come back. But we still have some catching up to do because you've got a bunch over there in Minnesota that they do not shy away from their progressive values, nor should anybody ever. And that's why you see him being considered. Again, if you made me put money down, I'd say it was probably going to be Mark Kelly from Arizona. But Tim Walz would be just an equally good addition to a Kamala Harris ticket.
Hey, I feel the same way, and I do think it's going to be Mark Kelly as well. But, another thing we saw, Pat, was a brain drain. We saw a lot of academics and professionals leave Wisconsin and go to Minnesota because they felt that this was a better place for them to live and work and raise their families because of these progressive initiatives that the Walz administration and others within the state had implemented. And we're still seeing that. Wisconsin is fighting back. We're going to get there. I really believe we're going to get there, but it has taken us a while.
Meanwhile, on the Republican side, like I said, there's just been a freak out. And I want to play back-to-back clips here from Donald Trump, both about Kamala Harris. One, the inability to get her name right, and then the way that he insults her intelligence. But let's start with the name and then the intelligence, and we'll talk about both clips on the other side.
But if radical, liberal Kamala Harris gets in, and by the way, there are numerous ways of saying her name.
No, there's not.
They were explaining to me, you can say Kamala, you can say Kamala. I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what I say. I couldn't care less if I mispronounce it or not. I couldn't care less. Some people think I mispronounce it on purpose, but actually I've heard it said about 7 different ways. There are a lot of ways.
Sure. And then there's this about her intelligence.
This room is amazing. The people in this room, high IQ individuals. I'm running against a low IQ individual, her. I'm not even talking about him, her. I got a low IQ individual.
Again, doesn't even try to say her name. And then if he does, he makes excuses saying, oh, there's different ways to say it. No, there's not. There's only one way. And if you are saying that somebody is low IQ who is accomplished in her law school class, served as a prosecutor, attorney general, U.S. senator, vice president, I think when you say low IQ, you might be referring to something else that you don't want to say and that you don't respect her enough to get her name right. This is not the tactic. I mean, I know it's been Trump's tactic all the time. I don't think it's working this time.
Hey, I do think it's working with his population, though.
With his
There
base,
was,
yes, yeah.
yeah, there was just
They
a
love it.
piece.
They eat it up. Yeah.
Oh, they love it. There was a piece some national news outlet did in Northeast Wisconsin, and the headline was, "She's so stupid." And it was one of his supporters just parroting what he had said. But I think the really shocking thing is if you just like stop and take a listen to what he's saying, this is a person who is running to again be the leader of the free world. And he is using words, misogynistic, racist, just ugly words that you don't hear other leaders saying. You would never hear Ronald Reagan saying things like this. He would slip in a quick one every once in a while, but like not like this.
No, not at all like this. And it's why, again, for that base, which I believe is shrinking, but I could be wrong. It's going to work. It's, that's red meat to them. But I think a whole lot of people who kind of forgot to vote, didn't bother to vote in 2016, I don't think this is going to work with them, especially as you insult not just the candidate, but their supporters. And I thought that it was actually John Bolton, George W. Bush's former U.S. ambassador, who is there's nothing liberal about him, but he is not a Trump fan. And he pointed out that in J.D. Vance and Trump now insulting Kamala Harris's voters, especially J.D. Vance as childless cat ladies, that is, as John Bolton put it, they failed to learn the lesson that when Hillary Clinton, instead of insulting Trump, called Trump's supporters deplorables, it kind of backfired. And I am guessing that among your patient base are patients who have not had children or cannot have children, maybe own some cats, and are probably not real thrilled with being told that their vote should matter less or their voice should matter less or that they should be disregarded. Pretty sure, based on the responses this week, a lot of women not feeling the love for J.D. Vance, much less Donald Trump.
You're talking about my little sister, and she's pissed. She wrote a post that we're going to put out on my social media, Kristin for Wisconsin, Facebook and Instagram and all of that, talking about being a childless cat person and what this actually means. And it is just brilliant. But it's not just the people who don't have kids and have cats. Everybody's mad about it because it's stupid and it's insulting. And it also digs into so many of the personal reasons why people don't have kids, whether it's a choice or it wasn't a choice, and this is where they ended up. And it's not just women. Remember, half of all infertility is male infertility. So it's pissing men off too. So whatever J.D. Vance is saying, and then remember, he defended cats, but doubled down on the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's not working.
No, it is really not. And I don't see how either one of them does this pivot. And I have loved the backlash to the reporters who during the Republican convention were saying, oh, there's going to be a pivot, a kinder, gentler Trump. And I love that these reporters are just being roasted. Like, what made you even think to believe that, much less write it? They are what they are. And as somebody put on social media, I mean, imagine what those two would say about Kamala Harris if she had 5 kids by 3 different husbands and had an affair with a porn. Oh, wait, that was Trump. Sorry, never mind. Yeah. So there's no pulling out of this particular tailspin, I think, at this point. You will be back in the 8th Congressional District. You've got a race for Congress there. The 3 Republicans had another candidate forum over the weekend or late last week, and I'm sure you've got more than a little events. The thing is, when you get done, working and heading back home, you don't get to just like, okay, well, I'm gonna make some home cooking and watch the Olympics. I'm looking at you right now, thinking this might be the most relaxed you're going to be all week.
98 days till the election, and it is a full sprint. But Pat, I'm here for it.
I believe nobody doubts that. Nobody doubts that even in your sleep deprivation, that you can do this. And nobody handles sleep deprivation better than an OBGYN, kids. Right. Trust me. When we come back, we're going to have today's history lesson, a few musical memories for you as well. And then Kristin, in our second hour, we're going to be talking to Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer about the Ride to Decide National Bus Tour.
Callie is just wonderful. It is really exciting to see my colleagues finding their voices and speaking up on behalf of themselves and our patients.
Yes, that has been one of the biggest changes. Is like you said, doctor saying, I can't lay low like this anymore. Mm-hmm. Something needs to be said. The threats are that real. So that'll be in our second hour. But today's history lesson is coming up next. You're Up North. I keep trying to leave a little bit more bumper music there. They asked me again last week, leave a little more bumper, and I try. And you see that clock, and you're just like, no, I've got more room.
The clock makes me nervous. When it's 1 minute to break, I'm like, how many words can I fit in 1 minute? You don't want it to be too few. It can't be too many.
Right. Yep. I know. All right. Here's that. Welcome to Up North News Radio Karaoke now with Kristin Lyerly and Greg Bach, playing the roles of John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. All because of the Grease soundtrack, which hit number one on this day in 1978. Thanks to hits like this from John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Might play
you don't want to sing? I'll do the Olivia part.
I know you will. You always. There's.
Come on, Pat.
At no point would I ever see you going, oh no, I couldn't possibly.
Yeah, I won't do it well, but I mean, I'll do it.
But you'll always be willing to do it. Yes, I know. Pretty much sums up my radio career here. On this day in 1981, a worldwide audience of 750 million people watched on TV the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Do you remember that?
I do.
You remember? I mean, do you remember that was? It was so huge, and it was because everybody thought it was the fairy tale wedding. It was built up so big. Those kids didn't stand a chance with that kind of a buildup,
Yeah.
For plenty of other reasons, but that's why I also think people who are under the age of 50 would have a tough time believing this, but for a big chunk of, say, the late 60s, early to mid 70s, there was so much coverage of Prince Charles as, quote, the most eligible bachelor in the world. I mean, we just kind of look at him now and it's like, really, this guy, but he was all that for a time. And so it's like, oh, wait, he's getting hitched. This must be huge.
I don't recall
And it
that.
was. The wedding was huge, but sadly, no. No, Rob and Tigerton, Pat and Kristin are not going to sing Summer Loving karaoke.
Had me a blast. Come on, Pat.
or
we can't. We're losing you, Doc. We're losing you.
Yeah, so, oh boy, the internet is just off.
Rob is always here for us.
I know.
We need to show up for him.
Okay, stick around, Rob. Mama Cass Elliott of the Mamas and Papas died at age 32 on this day. In 1974, she was on tour as a solo artist in London singing songs like this. It was just a death that was.
She did not choke on a ham
She
sandwich.
did not choke on a ham sandwich or a chicken bone or whatever. Her manager, believing that her death was drug related and wanting to protect her legacy, made up the story about choking on food, and it was a narrative that persisted for decades. But no, you're right. It's not a thing. Mm-hmm. The number one song this day in 1967 was by The Doors. Light My Fire would be the number one song for 3 weeks in 1967. On this day in 1836 was the inauguration of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, centerpiece of the Paris Games, which you probably haven't seen 2 minutes of, given how busy you've been between work and play.
I haven't, but excellent French accent.
Oui, merci. Let's do some birthdays. Let's see. There was Wayne Morris is 51 from Boys to Men. Grew up in, of course, Philly.
Slow skate, everybody. Slow skate.
That's right. Yep. Wanye Morris. I may have mispronounced that. I apologize. 51 years old today. Rush's Geddy Lee is 71.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So is Patty Scialfa from the E Street Band. Bruce Springsteen's spouse, 71 years old today. We mentioned Martina McBride is 58 today. And Will Wheaton from Star Trek and Big Bang Theory is 52. And I do that just so I can, for all the Big Bang Theory fans out there, go, Wheaton! And if you don't know, you're not laughing, and I get it. On this day in 1972, talk about your sappy 70 songs. This was the number one song by Gilbert O'Sullivan. Yes, one of many songs about death and dying and aloneness that were big in the 70s. Brought to you by Ennui.
This isn't even like yacht rock worthy.
No. This was pre-yacht rock. It was. Yeah, there was that. There was Shannon, the song about a dog dying. There was Billy, Don't Be a Hero. There just seemed to be a thing, a fixation.
There was the one about the summer.
Summer Lovin', yeah, Summer Lovin', Had Me a Blast.
No, that was not a death song. No. President Eisenhower signed into law on this day in 1958, the law creating NASA. On this day in 1984, can't believe it took till 1984, but Prince became the first person to have a number one song and star in a number one movie at the same time. The number one movie, of course, was Purple Rain, and the number one song this day in 1984 was this one. This is what it sounds like when the doves cry. 4 weeks at number one for his purpleness. On this day in 2015, the Eagles played their last concert with Glenn Frey. It took place in Louisiana, the final date of the History of the Eagles tour, featuring 27 songs, 2 encores, and, of course, closing with Don Henley doing Desperado. Glenn Frey would die 6 months later. The band continues on with his son Deacon in his stead, as we listen to a little bit of Don. Desperado, why don't you come to yourself? Haven't been to an Eagles concert, would go just for that song alone, along with everything else. On the National Day calendar, today is National Lipstick Day. Today is International Tiger Day. Today is International Chicken Wing Day. So, yeah, good day for the buffalo wings, I guess. And Craig,
what?
We've made it. We've made it. I know it's not the end of the month. I know it's not the end of Lasagna Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
But today, for whatever reason, is National Lasagna Day. Our long national nightmare is over.
It's not, though, because there's still more months.
Oh,
Well, I
thanks
know,
a
but-
lot.
Wow, great. Now we got to do this bit for 2 more days. Wonderful. Fine.
All right, here we go.
Happy Lasagna Day, everybody. We'll be aware of lasagna for 2 more days. The lasagna that was eaten on National Lasagna Day that we'll be aware of for 2 more days.
And it'll be even better when you heat it up over the next couple of days.
That's true. It actually is really good reheated. Much more in the second hour ahead of Up North News Radio on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Got your reasons.
All right.
We walked past First Ave yesterday, and it was just so neat to see all those stars on the wall. And
Oh, I know.
I
Isn't
was
it?
showing Craig, like, this is the origin of Purple Rain. This is when Prince died. This whole area was shut down, and there were concerts, and
Mhm.
yeah.
It was such a day. And how did he take all that? It's just like, yeah, can we go now?
No, he
Okay.
had never been downtown, so it was, I think, kind of neat for him. I don't know. He's sleeping over here.
Oh no! You're doing a show with him sleeping in the room there. I thought maybe you were like down in some other room someplace. You look like you're at street level there, and like, no,
Yeah.
you're disturbing somebody. Oh, that's funny.
He's a supporter.
Oh, okay. That's great. And then did I send you a note that I'm actually going to go to the DNC? I don't know if you're going down or not. You're probably not.
I am. I'm
Are ya?
speaking. Yes, I'm speaking at the progressive organization run by Alan Minsky is
Okay.
doing a thing the Sunday before, so I'm speaking at that,
Okay.
and then I'll be there for the rest of the thing. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll be around.
this is the best news of the morning. Because I'm going to be trying to do a radio show from down there. So
Great.
I'm going to need somebody to talk to. I have
got
somebody to talk to. All right.
I'll
Well, good.
always be your friend, Pat.
Oh,
I'll always talk
thanks.
to you.
Thank you. Say that by the end of that week when we're doing, the things that go on until the wee small hours. You think tonight, this morning was a dress rehearsal for the convention, like 5 nights of this or 4 nights of
Okay.
this. So,
Bring it. Come on.
so we're going to see because I don't know that we're going to get, that I'm going to get a ton of live guests. So it'll be just a lot of running around with the Wisconsin delegation and others and pre-recording things. And then poor Greg's going to have to play them back. And so it's going to be a little wild, but it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
going to be history making for sure.
Yes, there's a lot more excitement about this convention than there was 10 days ago, So, okay. All right. I'm going to leave you guys get some peace and quiet for a minute or two. Let Craig get some peace and quiet for a minute or two. Poor guy. I don't think he knows what he signed up for.
I think he likes it though.
I think he'd be so bored otherwise. The life of a Green Bay law enforcement officer. Not the most glamorous.
It's glamorous.
Sheila
You got a
E.
shout
did not
out.
sing about it. You got a shout out from where? What?
They have a thing called Fridays on the Fox, and Pat McCurdy, one of our favorite Wisconsin folks ever, was doing his Fridays on the Fox, and Craig walked by and shouted to the crowd, "Hey, there's the guy who taught me how to shout, freeze, turkey!"
Freeze turkey?
Because he was wearing his,
That's the whitest thing I've ever heard.
Well, that's Pat McCurdy.
Okay.
So he was a celebrity for like one brief shining moment, and he loved it.
Oh, that's so funny.
Right, honey? Mm-hmm.
He's like, why are you talking to me? Leave me sleep. Oh, let's see here. Okay, so Brittany apparently is out sick, so I do not have any forecast info here.
Rob, we need you. What is the forecast?
Oh, I got that here. Thick fog and 67.5 inch of rain. And happy lasagna day. So
Sounds like a perfect day for lasagna.
mm-hmm.
Does my voice sound a little low right now? I did a lot of screaming last night.
Did you? No, you
And
don't. You sound perfectly fine.
oh, good. It was worth it. Honestly, Chrissy Hind was fantastic. I am not a
I
huge
am
Pretenders fan,
I
but
am
she was
floored.
nailing it. And
That's
her
awesome.
her entire band was not the old Pretenders band. It was, a bunch of new folks, but like she's up there leading it, singing. Her
She
voice
is
sounded
about
clear.
to turn 73. She's just a few weeks away from turning 73. That's crazy.
Well,
Good for
she
her.
rocked it.
Oh, wow. I hadn't heard of the other group you said at all. What, L7?
Yeah, they're a female punk group.
Okay.
All girl punk group.
I felt so stupid. I was sure it was Fish, not Foo Fighters. Oh,
That would be a very different vibe. Dave Grohl then also brought his daughter out on stage, and they did a song that they had written together for his mom. It was very sweet.
That's very lovely.
And the guy I was standing next to was from Kimberly,
My goodness.
Wisconsin. Kakana's rival.
Kakana's rival.
Yeah, so we got into that real quick in between songs.
Kind of like you did with, what other friend were you with? And you got into it, Kakana versus someplace. Maybe it was Kimberly.
Alicia,
Yeah. Was it Alicia? I don't know.
any chance I get, you have to keep that.
Well,
steady.
Alicia's here to tell us that Seymour is beyond foggy right now. And now she's telling us, woo, Kimberly rules.
Boo, boo.
Oh, boy.
Kimberly is awesome. They are a wonderful little community. They're not as awesome as Kakana, but they're okay.
Okay. Great. That's all we need now is just a rivalry on our show.
Yes. We
Getting
always
people-
need a rivalry.
Making people unhappy.
No. It makes people happy. It gets people excited.
Okay.
It gives people a reason to show up.
Perfect. Let's see. What else here? Okay, we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. Okay. There. Okay. Here we go.
Thousands of Afghan.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, and brought to you by Courier Newsroom, carried by our friends here on the Civic Media Radio Network, 706, and nice to have you here on this Monday morning. It's July 29th. 2024, and coming up this hour, we're going to be talking about the Ride to Decide bus tour. We're going to be talking with Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer, one of the doctors active in promoting the restoration of women's health care rights. The bus tour was in Milwaukee for the Republican convention, then headed to some other states, and is working its way for the Democratic convention, I would dare guess. So Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer will be joining us. One of her friends and cohorts, Dr. Kristin Lyerly, is with us right now, along with Greg Bach. Brittany Merlot is... Greg, are we going to go under the weather? Because I'm thinking she actually is just... Remember we joked on Monday she might still be camping at the EAA, and then we'd know that there was a problem with maybe she lost her apartment or something. So I'm hoping she's okay after all that camping, you know.
She
Maybe
said she was sick, but like, you think about it, she was 7 days there. She was there from Monday until probably Sunday to Sunday. Woo!
Well, she was at the Air Venture for 7 days. You know what she's probably got? Air sickness. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I'll
she
I'll
is
be over
under
here.
the weather.
Under the weather. Wow. Okay, Greg.
That's
Can you do any
double
worse
whammy.
than me and Kristin on that?
Oh,
Do you want to try? No, he does not. No. It is cloudy.
Greg is
and-
disgusted.
It's cloudy and humid all over Wisconsin this morning. High humidities, warm temperatures. The stationary front that's reaching Wisconsin and is starting to disintegrate will continue to be warm and humid, but it also means there will be a chance of spotty showers and thunderstorms all across parts of the state today. In other words, Pat can't take the top down on his Jeep. It's warm enough to, but whenever you got that slight chance of a pop-up shower, the roof stays on. So last year was one of those summers where it felt like there was always a high pressure system sitting, right over us. So it was like days and days of not a cloud in the sky. We're not getting that this year, are we? We have plenty of rain chances now and then. So that's my cross to bear. I can't put the top down on my
That's
Jeep.
it, everybody. Have a good day.
That's
Bye.
it. Yeah. It's all about me, kids. But it also it also meant that when I came down to see you, Greg, for the Brewers game, and then was in Madison on Saturday for the Madison Mallards game, I had that excuse that I had to keep the top up because, again, driving with the top down, on an interstate for 200-300 miles gets to be a little loud and noisy. And yet I saw so many people who embrace that. They were on motorcycles, and it took a few of them passing me till the light bulb went off, and I'm like, oh wait, Harley weekend as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the Harleys were all over the place, passing us heading down to Milwaukee. And now I was at the Brewers game, but I didn't, go down to where the Harley festivities were. But I've seen some drone photographs. Looks incredible. I mean, maybe not if you like to be stuck in traffic, but if you're there for the fun, it looked like an amazing weekend to be in Milwaukee. What did you say? What was it called? River West?
24, which is a 24-hour bike ride in the River West neighborhood. Dr. Kristin Lyerly is smiling right now because, let me guess, you won it one year?
No, my son
She set
Abe
the world
lives
record.
there.
Yeah.
No, Abe lives there, so he walked the course and hit a couple breweries, and he was like living his best life over the weekend as he was reporting to me from the River West 24.
Yeah, so you had the River West 24, you had German Fest, you had Harley Fest, you had the Air and Water show that was happening, and I think there was one other thing happening as well, but you had like 4 big events happening in the Milwaukee area, and that's why I kind of stayed away from Milwaukee most of the weekend.
Yeah, if you bake that into the equation, and certainly we had to with traffic, I mean, then it was worth it. Leaving the Brewers game, I talked about getting back to Kevin's place in Madison after midnight. Part of it was that in leaving the stadium, I don't know how I got into the lane that I was in. I thought I was in the proper lane, and next thing I know, I'm going east on 94 instead of west.
Oh,
I'm heading toward downtown instead of Madison. I'm like, this is not where I want to be. But I was a local there once upon a time, so I knew to take right away I could get onto 175. So I've just got to get onto 175, then get off on Wisconsin and come back on 175. The Californians. Anyway, somebody cuts me off before I can take the ramp to 175.
What?
So I've got to go to the State and Vliet exit, and I'm saying a lot of bad words at that point, but somehow managed to get through it all. But I honestly, when people talk about they don't like to go to big cities and things like that, during moments like that, I kind of understand it, whereas if you know it, you're just like, okay, fine, I got to go to the next exit, but traffic can be a real concern. And I know people like Luke, when he came to the game, Luke Mathers, he took one of the shuttle buses, because he is wise, as well as, what is he? Capable, handsome?
Very handsome and very capable.
Yes, that's it. And knew to take the shuttle bus there. But I'm glad it was a good weekend all around. And in Madison, meanwhile, perfect night for baseball on Saturday for the Mallards game. If you've never been to a minor league game, Kristin, what's up by you? Is it the Timber Rattlers? Who's up in your direction? I get the Mallards. We've got all kinds of Northwood, the Eau Claire Express. They have a party deck in right field. The Mallards have a party deck in right field. Just, if you haven't gone to a minor league game or a Northwoods League game, go. You're cheating yourself if you haven't been to one recently,
Yeah, they're just fun. They're just fun events.
Yeah. Some of them are, like the Timber Rattlers are single A minor league ball. Northwoods League is college. They're all NCAA eligible. It's a wooden bat summer league. And just a good time all around for all of that. Brittany is not here, but Rob certainly is. Rob says, good morning from Tigerton. Thick fog in 67. Got a half inch of rain. To all my civic media friends, happy Lasagna Day. Thanks,
Happy
Rob.
Lasagna Day, Rob.
Meanwhile,
Happy lasagna today to all who celebrate.
It's like to all my civic media friends, all the other civic media folks are going, what's this? We're not doing the lasagna bit. That's just Kreitlow's thing. And Rob tells me in Wausau, it's the woodchucks. That's right. So you got to go see them.
We got the Kenosha Kingfish by me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's see. Alicia Saunders writes in that Seymour is beyond foggy this morning. She also knows that her friend, Kristin Lyerly, is here and reminds us that in the ongoing fight between Kristin's Kakana and Alicia's Kimberly, she says on Facebook, Kimberly rules. So take that,
Alicia.
Kristin. Then she goes on to say, Kakana and Kimberly are tied. All the communities in Assembly District 2 are awesome. Disclaimer, Alicia's running for Assembly in District 2. Kristin, if you missed it last hour, was at Foo Fighters concert at
Good
Target
job.
Field. Thank you. Yes, I have the memory of a goldfish. But yes, it was Foo Fighters that you were at. Along with Chrissy Hine and the Protect. Chrissy Hine turns 72 in a couple of weeks here. And you're saying still getting it done.
She was brilliant. Her voice sounded great. Her stage presence was excellent. It was just like the Chrissy Hind of the 80s.
That's so cool. I'm very happy to hear that. That's probably the biggest concert you're seeing this summer.
That's the only one that I have planned. It's a busy summer, Pat.
Oh, I know. It's, you can only take so many breaks from the campaign trail. I'm well aware. Just ask Eric Hovde, who spent part of his early part of the weekend at some kind of a Bitcoin conference in Nashville or something like that. I mean, look, we tease him for going to his place in Laguna Beach, California, but yeah, he posted something from a Bitcoin conference someplace. I'm like, what's that about? And then you had a member of Congress and the former president of the United States each talking about how if they have their way, the U.S. should buy up a bunch of Bitcoin, which I'm sorry, go ahead and bring on the emails, is garbage. And the only reason you would be advocating the government buying Bitcoin is because you own a bunch of it. And so you'd be manipulating the market if, as an elected official, that's what you're advocating. In other words, that's corrupt. And yet we've got people who are either in office or running for office wanting the U.S. taxpayer to help subsidize an imaginary currency. You should step off that bus sooner rather than later, because that's not a destination you want to take.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, it's just bad.
No. President Biden today is going to unveil a long-awaited proposal for changes at the U.S. Supreme Court, speaking of corruption in our government, calling on Congress to establish term limits and an ethics code for the 9 justices. And he wants lawmakers to ratify a constitutional amendment that would limit presidential immunity. And again, Kristin, in the days before Trump, if you said, should we have a code of ethics for the Supreme Court? Should we limit presidential immunity? You would have Republicans joining Democrats saying, yes, let's do that. And I think it is just borderline insane that we now have an entire political class that would say, oh, no, we want a president to have immunity. As long as it's, our president,
Yeah. Was there a need for this beforehand?
No.
Why in the many years of our country's history, why suddenly now is this an issue?
Yeah. Why could that be? I don't know. Let me think about this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff was in Wausau and Stevens Point over the weekend, attended the Hmong Wausau Festival in Wausau, and did some canvassing in Stevens Point.
And he had some tips for Donald Trump about how to say his wife's name.
Oh,
I don't
did
know
he?
if you saw that clip. Yeah, he said her name is Kamala, But, give it a few months and you can just call her Madam President.
Oh, very nice.
It was lovely.
Doug Emhoff off the top rope.
Just love Doug. I want him to be the first gentleman so bad.
Yes, it'd be great. Meanwhile, in Washington County, is the county fair is in West Bend, I think. I could be wrong, but anyway, the Washington County Republicans at their booth put up a banner with the Ronald Reagan quote, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" And I would like to encourage Republican parties everywhere to keep asking that question and to keep putting up that banner as if any of us besides you have memory hold the year 2020. I remember 2020. I remember where the economy was. I remember the buffoonery with which the pandemic was being addressed. And now I'm seeing a whole bunch of people trash talking the American economy. They are rooting for failure, even though we have the best economic recovery in the world. So it's one thing to believe your own propaganda. It's another thing to try to get all of America to memory hole 2020. Keep going down that road. More on Up North News Radio just ahead on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I have heard them back off and say, 3.5 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything anybody wants to get off their chest?
Somebody is texting about the baseball tickets they won last week, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. So.
Oh, okay.
But if you want, I have that Tim Walz. I don't know if you saw it. I have the Tim Walz.
Okay.
And Jake Tapper.
Oh, I see that. Okay. Green Bay Rockers. Okay. Okay, so you're taking care of John. All right. Good. Thank you.
Had me a blast. Summer loving happened so fast. I met a girl crazy.
The Grease soundtrack was the number one album this day in 1978. And our own little Sandy here is joining us for a little bit longer because of our special guest at 7:30. Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer is going to be talking about the Ride to Decide tour. And Kristin, a point we were making in the last hour was, and look, I'm trying to come into this in a very graceful way. Doctors were historically reticent to talk about political issues, and that's not a knock on them. But when we first started talking to you a couple of years ago, you knew you were an oddball. I mean, you knew that you were, a very brave person, willing to speak out on this topic. And it wasn't just the Dobbs decision, but, I think maybe for a whole host of factors, more doctors are willing to speak publicly about the topic. And again, this is to hold nothing against those doctors who would just as soon not, but have their feelings. But you totally understand why folks like you, like Dr. Cox-Bauer, like some of the other guests we've had on the radio, feel like they have a voice that they can add to this discussion.
Well, people who are having these conversations publicly the way that we do have a different skill set than people who go into medicine. People who go into medicine are trained and taught how to hear people's stories, sometimes really private, intimate, complicated stories, help them come up with solutions, diagnose, and treat, but not talk about it in a public way. We're taught very much to protect people's privacy, and that information does not leave your exam room. HIPAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to take that information and in an artful yet protective and private way, share it to the world is kind of a unique skill. And for me personally, as a gynecologist, there are a lot of things I talk about with my colleagues that I'm not going to talk about on the radio unless you want me to. I mean, I will. But it's things like, vaginas and stuff like that. That's really sensitive, and also things that are heartbreaking and hard to talk about, like miscarriages and the A word, abortion. Even now, after everything we've been through in the post-Dobbs era, that is still a word that makes people feel very uncomfortable. So we have to be really careful with our language. And I think that has been part of the thing that has prevented doctors from speaking up. But we're finding our voices. We're getting trained. We're understanding how important it is for us, and our patients, women, families are understanding how important it is for them to be able to tell their stories. So I am so excited to hear from Dr. Cox-Bauer. Not only is she a physician, but she trains physicians, and she is an incredible outspoken advocate. She's the package, Pat.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here on it, but well, I will come back to it, because I'm just, again, very appreciative for what's being done. Oh, I recall now the nuance of these conversations. There was a national reporter, I don't have his tweet in front of me here, but was talking about how Congress isn't going to pass a national abortion ban. They'll put some kind of restrictions in place, like 14 weeks or 15 weeks, to which a torrent of people, mostly women, responded, "That's an abortion ban." And basically a lot of the comments were, you without a uterus, you without a vagina, you will never understand, the nuance, the intricacies of this, because nobody has passed a law saying that you, sir, can't do this with your body.
This is something that Kamala Harris brought up when she was interviewing Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing.
Yes.
You tell me something in our federal code. Tell me a law that affects men's health the way that all of these things we're doing affect women's health. And, he couldn't come up with anything, because there isn't anything. And that was something that when I initially chose to go into OBGYN, I understood how political it was. And I understood that for me, that advocacy piece went hand in hand with the patient care piece. And here we are 20 years later, still doing it.
Oh, look, again, it's like Tony says on YouTube, they'll quote, never overturn Roe. I mean, that's what people like Kavanaugh said. Do you have that Kavanaugh clip with Kamala Harris handy, Greg, or no? If you don't, we'll go on to... Okay, let's give a listen. This is then Senator Kamala Harris talking to Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
Silence.
I'm happy to answer a more specific question, but
Male versus female.
there are medical procedures.
Okay. That the government has the power to make a decision about a man's body.
I thought you were asking about medical procedures that are unique to men.
I'll repeat the question. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
No, and you know why that is?
Because
there's not.
Aren't
There's
they?
not. Yeah, no, nothing like that.
But guys, can you be more specific, please?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be more specific.
Yep.
I like to hear it.
Yeah. And that's why you see, again, where they're hemming and hawing, the outspokenness, the plain English of a guy like Governor Tim Walz. We played a clip last hour, and I think Greg has that Jake Tapper one now, where he's talking about, are you too progressive? Are you too liberal? And let's give a listen to how he responds to that kind of a charge.
Trump is trying to paint Vice President Harris as an ultra liberal. Of all her potential running mates, you might have the most progressive record as governor. I know you were more of a moderate when you were in the House, but you've legalized recreational marijuana. You passed universal background checks on guns. You expanded LGBTQ protections. You implemented tuition-free college for low-income Minnesotans. There's free breakfast and lunch for school kids. Do you think your record is an asset to the ticket, or would it risk fueling Trump's attacks as you being a big government liberal?
What a monster. Kids are eating and having full bellies so they can go learn. And women are making their own healthcare decisions. And
what a monster.
We're a top 5 business state. And we also rank in the top 3 of happiness. Look, they're going to label whatever they're going to label.
Exactly. We'll go there. Tim Walz gets it. They're going to label however they're going to label Kamala Harris extreme and Tim Walz extreme for wanting kids to have school lunch. And for women to make their own decisions. Based on that charge, Kristin, I guess he's very happy to plead guilty, as are you.
I think Tim Walz is what people want. When I'm talking with people and they're explaining what their concerns are, they want real people who actually listen to them and want to help solve their problems, like a Tim Walz. They don't want somebody who is going to tell them what they're feeling. We're done being explained to.
Exactly. Last thing here, again, to some of the faux outrage from the right about the opening ceremonies and how they were getting wrong what some of the symbols in the opening ceremonies were. I just want to read some of my favorite reactions to the Republican reaction. 1, doesn't whining all the time, building an entire political movement around grievance and resentment instead of ideas and solutions, doesn't that get exhausting? Another, some Americans are shocked that French children took part in a drag performance at the Olympics. Meanwhile, all French children are shocked that American children take part in active shooter drills. And the other talks about being upset at French culture when conservatives put on their own display of culture last week: Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, Amber Rose, Donald Trump. Back with Dr. Callie Cox-Bauer next. Again, have to squeeze in every last bit of that, just like Kristin. I have more words.
1 minute.
Yep.
Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. We've been hyping you all morning.
Well, hopefully I perform as expected. I just finished being on for 24 hours, so I am fresh.
Yeah, Kristin too, but in a fun way. So
I'm just wrapping up my 10-day call span in northern Minnesota. I went to a Foo Fighters concert last night.
Oh, well, that's so much
it's
more
a
fun.
different kind of on-call, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
But as Pat said, I don't know if you know that Pat's wife is an OBGYN doc as well.
Okay.
So Pat knows that OBGYNs can always rise to the occasion in the morning.
Yes. Sleep. What is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. Get that later. Although Sherry hasn't been on call now for coming up on 3 months, and I don't know that she's ever going to go back. If Rice Lake ever gets off divert, they're gonna have to figure out something here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So we've got 3.5 minutes yet in the break here. So we'll do some ride to decide. And are there other things that you were doing prior to the bus tour, Callie, to be active and vocal on this issue, or is this your first burst of activism?
I've been more active in the graduate medical education realm and promoting and ensuring that our residents are getting appropriate education and termination training. So I think I've been much more behind the scenes in that type of activism than I have been in the media.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this was kind of my first media go through.
Nope, that sounds good.
And you should know, this is the secret show. This is streaming on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're in a radio commercial break, but the folks on Facebook still hear and see us. Let's see. And then the other thing you should know is if right now you're looking at this, if you ever see me disappear like this is just my cue to Kristin that she can ask the next question. So
okay.
Sometimes when I bounce out like that, there's nothing wrong with the connection. That's just kind of my cue there.
I'm like,
yep. Yeah. No, because we've got that occasionally. I've got on some days where I've kind of got guest co-hosts, and I like to just let them know that they're there to ask questions too, not just to say or you're awesome, or however many times Kristin's going to say that about you, before we finish this up.
I still think we need a little Danny Zuko, Sandy, Summer Levin duet, Pat.
We'll save that for the live show that we do on stage in Green Bay at some point. So
It is the anniversary of the Grease soundtrack, which may have preceded you a little, Dr. Coxbauer, but it was pivotal in my childhood.
I for sure remember watching it. It was just on TV again the other day.
Of course. It's everywhere. Are you in Milwaukee, by the way?
I am in Milwaukee.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Sounds good. Okay. Sounds good. We got a minute and a half. So I'm going to pop this up and go put some more coffee in my cup, and I'll be right back. All right, here we go.
Every laugh line on your face made you who you are today. This one's for the girls.
Martina McBride turning 58 years old today, just about 7:35 on Up North News Radio. And we're back here. Dr. Kristin Lyerly joins us, OBGYN and candidate for Congress in Northeast Wisconsin's 8th Congressional District. And we're joined now by Dr. Callie Coxbauer from the Milwaukee area, who recently took part in the Ride to Decide National Bus Tour for Reproductive Health Rights. Dr. Callie Coxbauer, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's fine by me because you were pre-screened by Dr. Lyerly, who, when we said we booked you, simply sent back "awesome" with a bunch of exclamation points. So you come firmly endorsed.
Thank you.
We've been doing some work behind the scenes.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. And now you work, Dr. Coxbauer, in graduate medical education, making sure that the next batch of medical residents is properly trained, as well as Dr. Lyerly and Dr. Kreitlow and a whole bunch of others, right?
Correct. Yep. We do we have our own resident program at the location that I'm at, and we teach 3 residents per year. OBGYN residency is a 4-year program, and abortion training, and that is really integral to ensure that you're providing the appropriate care for people who have uteruses.
Okay. So this Ride to Decide bus tour started at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, has gone through maybe 5 states or so, and then is going to wrap up at the Democratic National Convention. It was started by a group called Free and Just. Can you tell us a bit more about the bus tour and how you came to be a part of it?
Yeah, it actually started in Madison, and I got contacted and asked. It's really a campaign to amplify the stories of people that have been impacted by abortion restrictions across the United States so that people understand how this is impacting our communities. And the work is really grounded in storytelling. So they're fortunate to work with a lot of people that are coming out and telling their own abortion stories or how these abortion restrictions have impacted the people in their communities. And they're looking to educate people about what post-Roe looks like in America. They're also providing free contraception with the O pill and condoms, which is excellent, making sure people know where their resources are for reproductive health care.
The corner that's been turned since the Dobbs decision isn't just about, anger and outrage, but like you said, it's about the storytelling. A theme that I have shared with Kristin many times is that there's a big part of the population that only thought of abortion as this kind of, matter of convenience, as a form of birth control, rather than looking at the full spectrum of pregnancy care, pregnancy risks, the reasons why a late-term abortion is a tragedy, not some kind of a convenient choice. But I'd like to know if you feel that as well, like there's been a pivot, certainly not fully, but at least the start of a pivot in terms of public perceptions of what abortion care is rather than just abortion itself.
I think that I've definitely seen that. The anti-abortion movement has really done a fantastic job in painting like what this morality picture is in abortion. And abortion is not black and white. It is very gray. And I think as more people tell their stories and the community is seeing people in their communities that are so impacted by these decisions, where people are carrying pregnancies where they're getting very sick, it's definitely changing the conversation around what does abortion really mean and why it is part of healthcare.
Something that I have noticed when I'm out talking with people on the campaign trail is I'll give a big speech and, you rah rah and get people fired up. And people will then walk up to me and tell me their stories. And often they're not even related to abortion care. People have told me stories about miscarriages and babies who have had lots of problems and what their families have had to do to support them and how that's played out for them in their lives. And that has really, the more stories I hear, the more I understand and the more I learn, even as a doctor who hears these stories on a pretty regular basis in the exam room. I'm wondering, Kelly, how has hearing those stories shaped your career and cultivated your desire to do more advocacy work and to share those stories more broadly?
I think, unfortunately, in this conversation, we know that people that are affluent will be able to get abortion care regardless of what the laws look like. And I work and have always worked in an underserved patient population. And when I hear those stories and I hear the difficulties of what patients had to go through, especially in Wisconsin when our trigger ban went into effect, I had patients that had to travel all over the place that are away from their family and don't have the support that they need. And I think if my part can be played in advocacy to help lessen that burden, then that was what I needed to do. And I think that's really made me want to do more work and made me feel better about kind of being out in the sphere and saying, this is work that we need to do and this is care that we provide and we need to do better in this space, because it can be scary as a physician too to kind of speak out on these issues, especially when we know the political climate in states like Texas, where I was before, where you can be charged with a felony for aiding and abetting. So I think it's important we have to keep doing it so that our patients get the care that they need.
And not just for the patients of today, but also the doctors of tomorrow. This is a theme that Kristin has sounded many times with us, and certainly you working with resident education. I'm sure you have concerns about the future of patient care in certain states if residents won't go hang a shingle there when their training is done.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see now how our future residents are applying to different residency programs. We've seen a significant decrease in all specialties applying in states that have abortion restrictions. So it's not just affecting, those specialties that provide reproductive health care. It's affecting all of the specialties. And I think that's really because we're worried about having children in those areas and teaching the next level of resident to be able to provide effective care. It's really difficult to work in a state where you have to be like, this is not the standard of care. This is not actually what we should do. But here, because of the laws of somebody else that decided that has never stepped in an exam room, we actually have to provide substandard care. It's a really huge moral injury, and it's really difficult to continue functioning in that space and stay well as a physician.
It definitely is. And I think people don't think about young physicians starting their careers also being of reproductive age. And
Yeah.
how many of our colleagues have you talked with who have said, I can't put my own life and my own family at risk, so I need to live in a place where I know that I can get the care that I need. And it's not just us as physicians, it's young professionals of childbearing age who are really thinking about where is the best place for me to be in light of all of these restrictions on health care.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, interestingly enough, like there's this huge debate around in vitro fertilization now, and I had to undergo that to get pregnant. And as soon as Dobbs fell, I destroyed all the remaining embryos that we had because there's so much fear of like what's going to happen next. And we know that infertility for physicians and professional women is much higher. It's about 1 in 4. And if you're a surgeon, it's 1 in 2. So that type of reproductive health care is really important as well. So with abortion ban come restrictions on all of the other reproductive health care. And now we're seeing those restrictions extend to contraception as well. And I think it is very scary for women or people that have a uterus in this reproductive age range. What are you going to do? How are you going to protect yourself? It's a big question.
And yet we heard at the Republican convention, and since that time, we've heard politicians try to, I would say, try to play both sides of the fence. Just kind of this, what I would consider to be, a faux attempt at moderation, saying, well, we didn't mean IVF, but they can't change, that their name is on sponsorships for bills that would endanger things like IVF.
Well, and I mean, even trying to get IVF protection through Congress has been something that I think both sides would have agreed on and didn't.
Once upon a time, yes, it would have been a no-brainer. And now after that Alabama Supreme Court decision, you have senators saying, we didn't mean it, and yet they're blocking bills that would protect IVF. So I kind of feel like they're giving up the game here and only making it, easier, if that's the right word, for folks like you and Dr. Lyerly to educate their population on all the many things that are threatened. And Kristin, it may not necessarily stop there in terms of, what kind of exam room interference is possible in the future.
We know it won't stop there. We know that contraception is on the line. And that's no joke. 99% of people who have been sexually active have used some form of contraception. So this affects nearly every one of us. And contraception is in danger. And in states where abortion bans have been implemented, we've seen a decrease in access to contraception. So people in these states are not getting birth control. And that has a huge impact on people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Callie, if contraception is the next big crackdown at the same time that you're cutting down on, abortion rights, or even just informing patients of their options, I don't even know where you go from there. Where you're squeezing the balloon on all these different sides, and something's got to give.
Well, I think this is really just showing us like what this is actually all about, right? This is not about trying to protect the fetus or trying to protect people who have uteruses that are in childbearing age. This is really about control and taking away patients' autonomy to make decisions about themselves. And I think that's where the American people really needs to hear the message, is that people are losing their ability to make decisions for themselves on so many levels. So we have to be very cautious of how we move forward.
And from a state-by-state basis, and again, I feel like this is a gimme question, but it needs to be put out there again. Rather than having one national right under Roe v. Wade, you now have this checkerboard across the country with politicians, including J.D. Vance once, even talking about limiting women's travel across state lines. Is there anything else in medicine that is nearly that restrictive on a state-by-state basis?
No.
There's
nothing else that's that restrictive. Even like childcare, right? Like even if you have a child and you're separated, you can still move across state lines carefully. But there's nothing else in medicine that's that restrictive.
Yeah, and restrictive for no reason. You know, like give me a reason. One of the things that I find most ridiculous is with medication abortion in Wisconsin that you have to see a physician. There is a 24-hour waiting period, and then you have to go back and see the same physician to get the pill to provide a medication abortion. Well, this is the same medicine that people are now ordering online without any medical advice because of these ridiculous bans that are out there. So if these Wisconsin laws are meant to protect women and to ensure that people have access to healthcare, it's doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much evidence to suggest it's safe too, right? Like we're not even practicing evidence-based medicine through a lot of these abortion restrictions. It's purely based off of what somebody else's moral compass is in the situation. So the evidence is lacking.
Oh, I mean, when we talk about the medical evidence, I remember the first time asking Kristin, what's the difference between a 6-week ban or a 13-week ban or a 14-week ban? And Kristin nearly shouting from the rooftops, none of them have a medical basis. In fact, they're plucking a number, whatever number makes them feel good. And again, I'm not aware of anything like that. So finally, Dr. Coxbauer, with the Ride to Decide tour and other things, I mean, what are you hoping people get from campaigns like that as that bus tour makes its way through? Should they be looking to get questions answered from doctors or from certain, websites? What kinds of things would you like to see people do from here?
I think that campaign is really just to get out the people's voice, to understand that people in your community have been affected, and then to allow you to investigate further, like what does abortion care really look like in healthcare, so that you can make a good decision about how you're going to vote.
Yeah. And again, that's what it really is coming down to informed votes. Dr. Callie Coxbauer, thank you very much. I appreciate your advocacy on this, and it was great to talk to you this morning.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful.
Kristin, thank you for going overtime today. It was nice to get to spend some extra time with you. Safe travels back to Wisconsin.
Thank you. And Kelly, so good to see you.
You too.
Yeah. All right, Kristin, we'll talk to you next Monday. And when we come back, Civic Media News Director Terry Bell has 3 things you need to know to start the week. This is Up North News Radio, live from Chippewa Falls on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right. Yay.
Something you might want to, as you go back into Terry's segment, you could encourage people to free and just is open to everyone. Anybody who has a story to tell, and everybody has a story. So I think it's freeandjust.org. You can just go and sign up.
All right. Sounds good.
Hey Terry.
Thank you.
Hey.
See you later,
guys. Have a great week.
You too.
Happy Lasagna Day.
Yes. My lasagna is so good. How's Terry?
Well, good. How are you?
Good. Google just signed me out, so I can't pull up the 3 things here. So do you know if they are really quick?
Let's see. The virtual roll call.
Okay.
For the Democrats. Also, the 2 referendum questions coming up on August 13th, and Wisconsin Olympians.
All right. Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Civic Media News Director Terry Bell joins us now with 3 things you need to know to get the week started. Terry, happy Monday. How are you?
Happy Monday. Lasagna Day, I hear.
That's what we hear. That's the word. Have you watched much for the Olympics yet?
I have not, but that's going to change at about 10 o'clock this morning when the women's indoor volleyball team starts
That's
play.
just where I was going next. I was going to ask you about the indoor volleyball.
Yep, that starts this morning, and 2 of the greatest UW Badgers who ever were, Dana Retke and Lauren Carlini are on the team.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I was watching this morning, they start the programming like, 4 a.m. or whatever, because it's, of the time difference. And I was watching the Netherlands playing Serbia or something like that. I mean, when else are you going to watch that? But that's what the Olympics does, is it brings us all together to watch all these different sports from all these different teams. I kind of like the way that it was presented on NBC last night in prime time. It had kind of a wide world of sports, feel to it. And not there's good ways and bad ways to do it, and I don't know. I guess you can never please everybody all the time, but I was pretty happy with the packaging last night. I feel like I got to see a bunch of different sports. It wasn't just 4 hours of gymnastics,
Sure.
You actually got to
I think
see.
that's the way it has to be. Yeah.
But you also didn't have to watch the entire 2-hour mountain bike race, but they showed enough of the highlights that you got a sense of it. So I think they've got a good balance there. But yeah, obviously you'll be watching the volleyball later on. We'll get to the Olympics in a moment here, but let's get back to some of the presidential politics going on. And, we're getting that much closer to the DNC. Mm-hmm. And how Democrats are going to officially have a nominee now that, President Biden has withdrawn and Kamala Harris is the presumptive nominee, how she becomes the actual nominee.
And that's a process that starts this week, Wednesday, if I understand correctly. And so delegates will start voting virtually. And they need to, the reason for that is Ohio needs to have its ballots done by the candidates have to be ready for Ohio by August 7th. So the DNC doesn't even start until the 19th. So this is an attempt to get that done in time. Now, I understand that Ohio's situation has since been rectified, but they're going to proceed with the virtual vote anyway. So there will be the traditional roll call vote in Chicago the week of the 19th, but it'll be ceremonial. Things will actually be officially wrapped up, in the next week or so.
And I don't know who to blame for this, Ohio for having kind of this goofy early deadline, or in this case, the Democrats. It could have just as easily been the Republicans. Like, how did you not know that? Why did you schedule your convention that late? Why did you not make some kind of an arrangement? So the whole thing strikes me as unnecessary on a couple of levels, but hopefully this is a one and done thing and we don't see a situation like that going on anymore. What else do we have happening here? Obviously, we're talking about the November election, but there is still, the August primaries and those constitutional referendums.
That is so true. So you're right. 2 constitutional amendments are on the ballot in Wisconsin, and they would basically, both of them would achieve basically the same goal, which would be to move discretion of spending federal money from the governor to the legislature. So Wisconsin got a lot of money. Every state got a lot of money during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Republicans saw the Governor Evers exercising his right and responsibility to allocate that money. Didn't much care for that, so they decided they wanted to have that control, and so it passed two sessions of the legislature and is now on its way to voters. So Republicans are out there urging yes votes. Democrats are out there urging no votes on those 2 referendum questions that will be on the ballot on August 13th.
That's right. And we had somebody from the League of Women Voters on recently talking about why the League is opposed to the amendments. We've talked at length about the probably the motivations by legislative Republicans in putting them on the ballot. But again, it really comes down to how many people will show up and vote on August 13th who otherwise wouldn't, because there aren't any primary elections. But it's very important to note that this is a statewide referendum that's taking place. And so everybody would do well to show up and vote on August 13th. And by the way, he puts in the obligatory message here. If you want to know more about the August 13th primary election, what is on your local ballot, are you registered, how to register, where to vote, go to myvote.wi.gov to learn more about that. All right, third thing you need to know this week does have to do with the Olympics in Paris and some folks making the trek out from the Badger State to compete in Paris.
Yeah, 17 native Wisconsinites are going to be representing Team USA, like Lauren O'Connor from Belleville in rowing, Stephanie Roble from East Troy in sailing, Maria Laborde from Kenosha in judo, Tyrese Halliburton from Oshkosh in men's basketball are some of the 18 Wisconsinites in Paris. Also, 17 current or former UW Badgers on Team USA, Dana Retke and Lauren Carlini, like I just mentioned, but also former and current Badgers in women's rowing, men's basketball, women's volleyball, track and field, swimming and diving. there should be a lot of reason for people to have rooting interest in the Olympics this summer.
Oh, very much so. I mean, we know what a volleyball fan you are. Is there anything else you're looking forward to watching?
Got to admit, I'm pretty much got the blinders on. I'm focused like a laser on women's volleyball.
No, I mean, look, everybody's got their
That's
favorites.
my thing.
And I am not, the world's biggest gymnastics fan, but I watched a little bit of it yesterday. I'm a little concerned about, Simone Biles has her left ankle all wrapped up, and people are concerned that it's something there. But again, she could have had injuries the other 3.5 years, and I'd be like, oh, whatever. But now, this week, Simone Biles' ankle is a part of our lives. Whether
we're a lot more invested. Yeah,
exactly. And not to mention the competitive nature of how close some of these things are. I mean, some of the swimming heats yesterday, medals decided by 1/100th of a second. That to me is so heartbreaking, but
and the way that can change a life too, the
Yes.
opportunities that come, with a gold medal that you may miss out on by this much.
I know. Terry Bell follows this and so much more with the Civic Media News team throughout the course of the day on the Civic Media Radio Network. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks,
Have a great
Pat.
day. All right. Greg Bach will be back at 10 a.m. for Matinee on Air. Any particular topics or guests you want to preview?
We'll be having Wendy Schwalbe from Parents as Teacher on the show at 11:20, and just going over the weekend's news, probably talking about Trump a little here and there, but just giving you the news of the day and having some fun while we're here.
And Jane saying, no, I don't want to polka dance with you during roll out the barrel during the 7th inning, Kreitlow. So stop trying.
You didn't ask me. You didn't ask me.
I know I should have gone there next. I'm sorry. All right. Say goodbye, Greg.
Goodbye, Greg.
Tomorrow, Hans Breitenmoser, Sharita Booker, Christina Laurie. Thanks to today's guests, Callie Coxbauer and Dr. Kristin Lyerly. And thanks to you for being here as well. Have a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow morning up north.